Welcome to the Growth and Success Mindset Podcast, where we unlock your potential and ignite your journey to extraordinary achievements. Get ready to elevate your thinking, cultivate resilience, and embrace a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's rise above limitations and create a life you love.
Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into a mindset that's, well, the guy's launching rockets, he's shaking up the car industry, he's tweeting constantly.
And honestly, blown a lot of people's minds along the way.
Right. Today we're going deep on Elon Musk, trying to figure out what makes this guy tick.
And how he pulls off what, to most people, seems like the impossible.
You guys are obviously interested in this whole billionaire mindset thing.
How do they think so big? How do they handle risk? And where do they find the inspiration? We're going to try and answer some of those questions today.
What's the real story here? Not just the headlines, but the strategies?
Right.
The mindset behind this guy's success. What can we actually learn from his approach? You know, the man behind the myth, the drive, the ambition, the controversies. Where does it all begin?
Yeah, so to understand Elon Musk, you got to go back to his roots, right? I mean, this is a guy who was born in Pretoria, South Africa, a world away from, the Silicon Valley we usually associate with tech giants. You know what's so interesting about Elon Musk? It's that he's not just launching these flashy projects.
Right.
He's really a master of identifying what he calls the signal amidst all the noise.
Interesting.
He focuses in on what he sees as the truly important long-term trends.
Okay.
The things that will fundamentally reshape the world.
Yeah.
And he pours his energy into those. It's not just about making a quick buck for him.
Right.
It's about tackling these huge, potentially world-changing challenges.
And that focus seems to have been there from the start.
Yeah.
Did you know he taught himself to code at 10 years old?
What?
I mean, that's not exactly your average kid's after-school activity.
Right.
It really makes you wonder if those early experiences played a role in shaping that signal-seeking approach later on.
Absolutely. I think it's not just the coding itself, but it's what it represents.
Yeah.
This self-directed learning, the passion for technology, a willingness to kind of dive in and figure things out on his own. These are all hallmarks of Musk's approach.
Yeah.
And they were evident even in his childhood.
Like he was already tuning out the noise and focusing on what excited him.
Right.
What he believed was important.
Exactly.
Speaking of tuning out the noise.
No, absolutely not. And it speaks to, an innate curiosity, this drive to understand how things work. And then at 17, he moves to Canada, partly to avoid military service, but also, it seems, drawn by, the allure of the growing tech scene in North America.
So even as a teenager, he's already making bold decisions, taking risks to pursue his interests. It's a pattern that we see throughout his life.
Absolutely.
His willingness to kind of break with convention.
Yeah, and those early experiences, I think, really played a role in shaping his entrepreneurial spirit. And, like you said, that willingness to break with convention. From Canada, he ends up at the University of Pennsylvania, earning degrees in both physics and economics.
And that combination alone tells you that he wasn't interested in just limiting himself to one path.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, of course, the famous Stanford story.
Oh, yeah.
Enrolls at a PhD program, only to drop out after 2 days.
2 days.
2 days.
Couldn't resist the pull of the internet. Boom,
He was just exploding, and he's like, I gotta get in on this.
It takes guts, to walk away from a prestigious program to bet on at the time, unproven technology, right? But it speaks to his intuition and his ability to, kind of sense where the world is heading and his confidence, like in his own ability to shape that future.
Yeah. I think that's a key point, right? This confidence that he can actually shape the future, not just ride the wave.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's captivating about Elon Musk? He doesn't just dream big, does he?
No, not at all. It's more than that. He builds those dreams into reality.
He makes them happen.
Exactly. It's that blend of audacity and engineering, this deep belief that you can solve any problem as long as you approach it the right way.
He kind of does seem to play by different rules, doesn't he?
He does.
But, even he had to start somewhere. Let's talk about his early ventures.
Yeah.
Zip2 and PayPal. These weren't just stepping stones. They were massive successes in their own right.
Huge.
What signals do you think he was picking up on back then in the early days of the internet?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, Zip2, that city guide software that he built with his brother, got snapped up for almost $300 million.
Yeah.
That's not just a win, that's a massive signal that he was onto something.
Yeah.
And then using those profits to fund X.com, which morphed into PayPal, classic Musk, taking these calculated risks, spotting these opportunities in emerging markets. Like, he had a knack for identifying the future of online commerce before most people even knew what online commerce was.
He clearly wasn't afraid to dive headfirst into uncharted territory.
No, he wasn't.
But the X.com and PayPal merger,
Yeah.
that wasn't exactly a smooth ride, was it?
True. There were definitely some bumps along the way.
Okay.
But the way he navigated that merger really speaks volumes about his adaptability. He was willing to pivot, to compromise, to do what it took to make that vision a reality.
It's interesting.
And you have to remember, this was all happening in the late 90s, the wild west of the internet.
Yeah.
He wasn't just riding the wave, he was actively shaping it.
And then he launches what we might call the big three.
Yeah.
SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity. Each company seems to represent a piece of his grand puzzle for the future.
Right.
It's almost like he's trying to build the world he wants to see, piece by piece.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
SpaceX is all about making humanity multiplanetary, like a long-term bet on the future of our species.
Wow.
Tesla is tackling that more immediate challenge of sustainable transportation and energy. And SolarCity, which later merged with Tesla, further solidifies his commitment to a sustainable future. They're distinct companies.
They are.
But they all point to this central theme
Okay.
of tackling these massive long-term challenges.
It's incredible how each of those companies, while tackling different problems, connect back to this central theme of pushing boundaries and solving really big problems.
Yeah.
How about we break down his strategies a bit?
Sure.
We got a lot of information here about his leadership style and how he tackles these challenges.
It's so fascinating how those early passions can almost predict someone's path.
It's like a real-life superhero origin story, but this one's playing out right in front of us. And even beyond those interests,
If you see a bigger, more impactful opportunity,
you go for it.
you go for it.
Talk about betting on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump ahead to the PayPal days. Selling it to eBay for, what was it, $1.5 billion?
A huge sum.
Most people, that's the dream. Time to relax.
Right. Enjoy life.
Not Elon Musk. He saw that money as fuel. Fuel for even bigger dreams.
It's such a powerful lesson there. He could have easily retired, lived a very comfortable life. But instead, he chose to reinvest that fortune into things that could change entire industries. He wasn't aiming for personal wealth at that point.
No, he wasn't settling. And that's huge for anyone listening. Don't let your wins, no matter how big or small, become the finish line.
Use them as fuel to reach bolder goals.
To get to the next level.
It's about understanding that success is a stepping stone, not the destination.
I like that. So speaking of bold goals.
Yeah.
SpaceX, Tesla, SolarCity.
Neuralink, the boring company.
It's like he looked at the future and decided, I'm going to build that myself.
It's incredible, isn't it? Space exploration, sustainable energy, brain-computer interfaces, even tackling traffic.
It's kind of mind-boggling, the scope of what he's involved in.
What's striking isn't just the variety of these companies, though. It's the sheer scale of the ambition behind them. He's not just trying to make things a little better. He's aiming to redefine, to disrupt whole industries.
And he's doing it in areas that are notoriously difficult, some of the most complex challenges out there. And he's not just throwing ideas around, he's actually making this stuff happen. To really illustrate this, I think we should look at one achievement from each company. So for example, SpaceX. They managed the first successful landing and reuse of an orbital rocket.
That's a game changer for space travel, isn't it?
Totally.
It's not just cool, it completely changes the economics of space travel.
It does.
And, you know, this is a perfect example of Musk's first principles thinking in action. He saw the insane cost of space travel as a fundamental problem. So what did he do? He broke it down to the core components.
He didn't accept the way things were.
No. Instead of saying, well, this is just how it is, he asked, why is it so expensive? And then he systematically went about finding ways to reduce that cost.
And reusable rockets were a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, then you've got Tesla shaking up the entire car industry. They're not just building electric vehicles. They're pushing the limits on battery technology, self-driving features, sustainable manufacturing.
Even the big car companies, the giants, are struggling to keep up.
They are.
They played a huge role in making solar power mainstream, became one of the biggest solar providers in the US, again, showing Musk's commitment to a sustainable future.
Yeah. And then there's this stuff that feels like it's straight out of science fiction. Neuralink, working on brain-computer interfaces.
The goal, treating neurological conditions and potentially enhancing human capabilities.
Think about a world where paralysis or Alzheimer's could be a thing of the past.
It's mind-blowing. And I think what sets Musk apart is that willingness to tackle those problems that most people wouldn't even dream of trying to solve. He doesn't just see a challenge, he sees an opportunity to really push the boundaries of what's possible.
He doesn't shy away from the big stuff.
He doesn't.
And even something like the Boring Company, which sounds kind of boring compared to rockets and brain chips.
Right.
But the goal is to revolutionize transportation.
By creating efficient tunnels for high-speed underground transit.
He's taking on traffic head on. It seems like with every venture, he's asking, what seems impossible to solve, and how can we do it?
He's definitely not afraid of a challenge.
So we've seen the achievements. We've seen the crazy scope of his ambition. But what about the guy behind it all? What's the, Musk method? How does he actually approach these challenges?
It's a really interesting combination of factors. There's that boldness, the unwavering belief in the power of engineering.
Yeah.
And of course, the first principles thinking we talked about. But there's also calculated risk-taking and a relentless work ethic. Those are essential parts of his approach.
He's not just some CEO sitting in a fancy office, right? He's deeply involved in the technical side of his companies.
Oh, absolutely. He's constantly pushing his teams to innovate, to find solutions that others might just dismiss as impossible.
He's hands-on. And that first principles thinking, it's crucial. Breaking complex problems down into their simplest parts.
Questioning assumptions.
And then building solutions from the ground up.
Exactly.
He questioned why space travel was so expensive and ended up basically revolutionizing the industry with those reusable rockets.
It's a great example.
And then there's the risk-taking. He's not afraid to go against the grain, even when the stakes are incredibly high.
I mean, think about it. Before PayPal,
It's hard to even remember, right?
online transactions were, I don't know, clunky, insecure, a real headache. PayPal made it, seamless, effortless.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's no wonder that eBay scooped them up for, a cool $1.5 billion.
Yeah, Zip2, this city guide software, might seem almost quaint now. But back in the late 90s, this was revolutionary. It's essentially providing digital maps and directories for newspapers, way before smartphones or Google Maps.
Right.
And what's striking is that he not only built this innovative product, but also managed to convince major newspapers to buy into his vision. So this isn't just tech savvy, it's business acumen.
Absolutely.
Especially at such a young age.
Yeah.
And then selling it for what, around $300 million?
I mean, talk about validation, right?
Validation of this approach.
It wasn't just luck. It was a combination of, like we said, this groundbreaking product, a keen understanding of the market, and, let's face it, some brilliant salesmanship.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial lesson for anyone, right? Innovation alone isn't enough. You got to be able to persuade others to build a market for your ideas.
You got to get people on board. Yeah. I think it's the combination of audacious goals and a deep belief in what he calls first principles thinking.
Yeah, explain that a little bit.
So first principles thinking, it's about breaking down complex problems to their fundamental elements. You strip away assumptions and conventional wisdom, and then you rebuild solutions from the ground up.
It's a very, very different way of looking at the world.
It is. It's a high-risk approach, but it allows him to envision and achieve things that others deem impossible.
Yeah. And I think we see that play out in both SpaceX and Tesla.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into SpaceX first.
Okay.
Founded in 2002 with the stated goal of making humanity a multiplanetary species.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, right?
It really does.
At the time, the space industry was dominated by government agencies like NASA. Private companies launching rockets, let alone colonizing Mars, was considered, I don't know, pure fantasy.
Yeah, it was a fringe idea, to say the least.
But Musk, with his first principles approach, saw it differently. He questioned the assumptions that drove up the cost of space travel, particularly the idea that rockets were disposable, used only once.
Right, like why does it have to be that way?
Yeah, his vision was reusability, landing rockets back on Earth after launch, just like airplanes.
And that vision, which many initially dismissed as crazy talk, is now a reality. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rockets are regularly landing back on Earth, dramatically reducing the cost of space travel.
I mean, it's opened up possibilities that were just unthinkable a few decades ago.
And it's a testament to his engineering-driven approach.
Absolutely. He surrounded himself with, some of the brightest minds in engineering,
Right.
Fostered this culture of rapid iteration and problem solving.
Yeah, and just push the boundaries of what was considered technologically feasible.
And the results, well, they speak for themselves. SpaceX is now a major player in the space industry, partnering with NASA to send astronauts to the International Space Station, developing spacecraft for deep space missions.
And relentlessly pursuing that goal of reaching Mars.
Always pushing forward.
So, while SpaceX is shooting for the stars, Musk also has his sights set on transforming transportation here on Earth. He joins Tesla in 2004, a company already making electric cars, but struggling to gain traction.
Yeah, it was a very different landscape back then.
Musk, with his characteristic boldness, takes the helm and sets out to not just build electric cars, but to make them the best cars in the world, period.
And that's a key distinction, right? He wasn't content with just making electric cars that were, good for the environment. He wanted to make them desirable, aspirational, even sexy.
Yeah, make them cool.
Exactly.
And he did just that.
He did.
The Tesla Roadster, their first production car, was this sleek, high-performance sports car that turned heads.
Yeah, it shattered the stereotype of electric vehicles as being, slow and boring.
Yeah, like milk cartons on wheels.
Exactly.
And then came the Model S, the Model X, the Model 3, each pushing the boundaries of electric car technology, range, performance, and design.
Tesla became synonymous with innovation, luxury, and, a commitment to a sustainable future.
Yeah, and underpinning it all was this relentless focus on vertical integration.
So Tesla didn't just build cars. They designed and manufactured their own batteries, developed their own charging infrastructure, even wrote their own software.
This control over the entire ecosystem, it allowed them to innovate at a pace that traditional car manufacturers just couldn't match.
It was a completely different approach.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and we're just scratching the surface here. So far, we've seen Elon Musk as the tech prodigy, the savvy businessman, the audacious innovator.
Right.
What are some key takeaways that stand out to you?
Well, one thing that jumps out is his incredible work ethic. I mean, leading multiple companies simultaneously,
Right.
each one pushing the limits of tech and innovation,
Yeah.
requires a level of dedication that's almost superhuman.
It's crazy.
But it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart.
Right.
He's known for this engineering-driven leadership, being very hands-on with Tesla self-driving tech.
Okay.
SpaceX's reusable rockets.
I'm curious, can you give us a specific example of how that engineering mindset plays out in practice?
Absolutely. Take Tesla's self-driving technology.
Okay.
Musk doesn't just delegate that to his engineers.
Right.
He actively participates in these technical discussions, challenges assumptions,
Wow.
and pushes for innovative solutions.
So he's got that deep knowledge
He does.
from his background.
Yeah, his engineering background gives him a deep understanding of what's technically feasible. And he uses that knowledge to drive his teams forward.
So he's not just the big picture visionary. He's also in the trenches, getting his hands dirty with the technical details.
He is.
That's impressive.
It is. And it's another example of how he filters out the noise.
Right.
And focuses on what truly matters. Building the future that he envisions.
And that future, it seems, includes shaking things up. I think it's worth taking a moment to really unpack this Musk method we keep mentioning. It's one thing to have a vision, but how does he actually make it happen? Time and again, against all odds.
Right. It's this potent blend of strategy, personality, and just this relentless drive that honestly borders on superhuman. Take his goal setting, for example. It's not just about setting ambitious targets. It's about setting targets that most people would consider borderline delusional.
Yeah, colonizing Mars,
Yeah.
merging human minds with AI. These aren't incremental steps. These are paradigm shifts.
Right, exactly. And he pursues them with this unwavering conviction. It's incredible.
It's not just blind faith either. He backs it up with this engineering-driven leadership style.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't a CEO who sits in a boardroom detached from the details.
No, he's in the trenches with his engineers.
Yeah, poring over designs, pushing for rapid prototyping and testing, fostering a culture of relentless problem solving.
But it's demanding, right? I mean, this move fast and break things mentality doesn't always sit well with everyone.
No, it can be very intense.
We've seen the criticisms of the workplace culture at his companies, allegations of burnout, safety concerns, pushback against unionization efforts.
Right, and those are valid concerns. There's definitely a need for a more nuanced conversation about the balance between ambition, innovation, and worker well-being.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just about the end goal.
Exactly.
And this brings us to another aspect of the Musk method that's both a strength and a weakness. His incredibly public persona.
Oh, the man lives on Twitter.
Or X as it's known now.
Yeah, X, whatever.
He's not actually known for holding back his opinions.
No, not at all.
Market predictions, political commentary, memes. He's engaging directly with the public in a way that few CEOs ever have.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Totally.
On the one hand, it creates a sense of transparency, builds a cult-like following, allows him to bypass traditional media channels, shape his own narrative.
But on the other hand?
Yeah, it can lead to impulsive statements, market volatility, even legal trouble.
Like that whole taking Tesla private tweet.
Oh, yeah. Landed him in hot water with the SEC.
Big time.
Big time.
Yeah.
And that whole saga really highlights the risks associated with his unfiltered approach.
And it's not just regulatory scrutiny he's faced. His COVID-19 stance, keeping Tesla factories open despite lockdowns, questioning the severity of the pandemic, generated a lot of controversy.
Yeah, he was definitely criticized for that.
Accusations of recklessness.
Right, and then of course there's the Twitter acquisition itself.
Oh yeah, the Twitter takeover.
Talk about a whirlwind.
I mean, legal battles, policy changes, mass layoffs, rebranding to X, all orchestrated in classic Musk fashion.
Bold, disruptive, utterly unpredictable.
Whether you love it or hate it, it was a power move that really shook up the social media landscape.
And it continues to generate debate about the future of online platforms.
It's a prime example of his willingness to take massive risks, disrupt established institutions, and bet big on his own vision.
Absolutely, he's not afraid to shake things up.
It's this combination of traits, this almost paradoxical blend of genius, audacity, and impulsiveness that makes him such a compelling, albeit controversial, figure.
Yeah, you never know what he's going to do next.
So even beyond SpaceX and Tesla, his entrepreneurial drive extends into other seemingly disparate ventures, each pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Like Solar City, right? Focused on solar energy solutions.
Yeah, which Tesla later acquired.
Right, and that move really speaks to his vision of a sustainable future, not just through electric vehicles, but through clean energy generation and storage.
A more holistic approach.
Yeah, recognizing the interconnectedness of our energy challenges.
And then there's Neuralink.
Oh, Neuralink.
To me, that feels like something straight out of science fiction.
Brain-computer interfaces, it's mind-boggling.
I mean, the implications are huge, both in terms of the potential to treat neurological disorders and to just fundamentally alter how we interact with technology.
Even how we think and perceive the world.
It's almost too much to wrap your head around.
It is, and then just when you think you've got a handle on the scope of his ambition, you've got the Boring Company.
Tackling traffic congestion by digging tunnels.
Yeah, leave it to Elon Musk to come up with a solution that sounds both ludicrously ambitious and strangely practical at the same time.
Like, why didn't I think of that?
Exactly.
The idea is to create these underground networks for high-speed transportation, bypassing surface traffic, potentially revolutionizing how we move within and between cities.
It's classic Musk, right? Identify a problem, reject conventional solutions, and propose something radically different, even if it sounds a bit crazy at first.
So we've got space travel, electric cars, solar energy, brain-computer interfaces, and underground tunnels. Is there anything this guy doesn't want to tackle?
It seems not, and that's what makes him such a captivating figure. He's not content with incremental progress. He's aiming for fundamental transformation across multiple industries.
With an unwavering belief that technology can solve humanity's biggest challenges.
Which is inspiring, but also, a little bit daunting.
Yeah, for sure. And as we've seen, that ambition comes with a price. The controversies, the pushback, the ethical concerns, it's all part of the package.
It's a complex picture.
It is. So the question becomes, is it all worth it? Can we and should we separate the man from the mission?
Those are tough questions.
They are. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
what are your thoughts on the long-term implications of Musk's approach?
Not just for his businesses, but for society as a whole.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I think what's fascinating and perhaps even a bit unsettling for some
Yeah.
is that he's blurring the lines between entrepreneur, engineer, visionary,
Right.
and even politician.
Yeah.
He's not operating within the traditional boundaries of any one field.
It's true.
He's creating his own.
Yeah.
And that's a trend we're seeing with other tech titans as well.
It's almost like they're becoming a new breed of power player,
Right.
wielding influence that extends far beyond the boardroom.
Uh-huh.
And that raises all sorts of questions about accountability ethics and the balance of power in a world increasingly shaped by these tech-driven individuals.
You've hit on some crucial points there.
Yeah,
These are questions we'll need to grapple with
for sure.
as we move further into this era of tech-driven disruption.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge the positive aspects of Musk's approach.
Like, he's inspiring a whole generation of entrepreneurs and innovators to think bigger, to challenge conventions, and to pursue these ambitious goals that might have seemed impossible just a few years ago.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
He's showing us what's possible when you combine a bold vision with a relentless drive to execute it.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether you agree with everything he does,
Of course.
you have to admit he's making things interesting.
He is.
He's shaking things up,
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries, and forcing us to rethink what the future might hold.
Yeah.
So we've spent the last 2 segments really exploring Elon Musk's world.
Yeah.
From his early influences to his current ventures and all the controversies that seem to swirl around him.
Right.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
But as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I think it's time to shift focus from the man himself to the bigger picture.
I agree. It's not just about Elon Musk, the individual.
Right.
It's about what his trajectory represents. This rise of these tech titans wielding immense influence, not just in business, but in global affairs and politics, even shaping the future of humanity itself.
It's a big question.
It raises some pretty profound questions about where we're headed as a society.
Exactly. And he's at the forefront of this shift.
He is.
SpaceX, aiming for Mars colonization.
Yeah.
Tesla, revolutionizing the automotive industry. Neuralink, exploring brain-computer interfaces.
Yeah.
These aren't just companies. These are potential game changers for our species.
Right.
It makes you wonder, what happens when individuals wield this much power?
It's true.
Who holds them accountable?
Those are the questions we need to be asking.
Yeah.
It's uncharted territory in many ways.
It really is.
On the one hand, you have this incredible potential for innovation and progress being driven by individuals with the vision and the resources to actually make things happen.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's the risk of unchecked power, unintended consequences, and a lack of transparency and accountability.
We've seen a lot of criticism, too.
We have.
His management style, his treatment of workers, his sometimes reckless pronouncements on social media.
Right.
It's a mixed bag, to say the least.
It is.
And his political involvement,
Yeah.
especially that Stargate project dispute, has drawn fire from both sides of the aisle.
True.
Some see him as a visionary leader, others a loose cannon.
He's a polarizing figure.
He is.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's often the case with these disruptors, you know. They challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
They shake things up, and inevitably they make some enemies along the way.
Right.
But progress rarely happens without some friction.
That's true.
The key, I think, is to encourage open dialogue, critical thinking, and a willingness to engage with different perspectives, even those we might disagree with.
And that's where that signal versus noise concept becomes so crucial.
Right.
How do we as individuals, as a society, navigate this constant barrage of information, filter out the distractions, and focus on what truly matters?
It's a challenge we all face. And I think one of the things we can learn from Musk, whether we agree with his methods or not, is the importance of having a clear vision, a set of guiding principles, and the willingness to stay focused on the signals, even amidst the chaos and the noise.
That sense of direction of purpose, it seems to be a driving force for him.
It does.
It's like he's not just building companies, he's building a future that he believes in.
And that unwavering belief in his vision, that's a powerful thing.
It is.
It allows him to take risks, to push boundaries, to ignore the naysayers and just keep moving forward. Whether he ultimately succeeds in achieving all of his goals is another question. But the impact he's having on the world is undeniable.
But how do we, like regular people, actually learn from this? What can we take away and use in our own lives? Even if we're not building spaceships or anything. We'll explore that next.
Okay, so we've spent this whole deep dive, you know, exploring Elon Musk, his companies, his mindset, that almost like superhuman drive he's got.
It's pretty incredible.
It is. But let's be real, most of us, we're not out here building rockets or brain chips or anything.
Right.
So what's the takeaway for the rest of us? What can we actually learn from this guy?
That's the big question, isn't it? Because it's so easy to get caught up in all the spectacle, you know, the big visions, the billions of dollars.
It's just dazzling.
It is. But what we've tried to do here is uncover those principles underneath it all, the way he approaches problems, his goals.
Because that's the stuff we can actually use.
Exactly. It's not about copying him exactly. It's more like taking those strategies and seeing how they fit into our own lives. Even if our missions, so to speak, are completely different.
Right. And one of the biggest things I think is that thinking big It's not just a motivational poster.
It's deeper than that.
It's a whole shift in how you see things. Musk doesn't look at a problem and say, how can we make this a little better?
He goes for the max.
He asks, what's the most ambitious solution, even if it seems impossible right now?
Which brings us back to that first principles thinking, doesn't it?
It all connects.
Because if you're only looking at how things are done now, you get stuck in those limits.
And trapped by the way everyone else thinks.
But if you strip it all back to those core principles, like suddenly new doors open.
Possibilities you didn't even see before.
Exactly. And this applies to anything, not just super high-tech stuff. Let's say you're trying to get healthier. Don't just think about, like, cutting out soda.
Right.
What would a truly amazing health plan look like for you? Even if it means some big changes.
Big changes can be scary, but they can also be the most rewarding.
Exactly. Or stuck in a dead-end job. Don't just look for the next rung on the ladder.
Think about your dream career, the one that really lights you up.
And what would it actually take to get there, even if those steps seem huge right now?
They might not be as impossible as you think.
So it's like stretching your imagination, almost forcing yourself to think beyond those limits you've set in your mind.
Because often, those limits are the only thing holding us back.
And once you've got that big, ambitious goal, that's when the risk management comes in, right?
Because anytime you're trying to do something big, there's going to be risk. That's just life.
It's unavoidable.
But Musk, he doesn't run from it. He studies it, understands it, and then makes smart choices based on what he knows.
And that's something we can all learn, right? It doesn't matter if it's investing money, changing careers, even a relationship.
Assess those potential downsides. Do what you can to minimize them, but don't let fear stop you from taking action.
Don't get paralyzed.
And that loops back to learning and adapting, too. Musk's always digging for new knowledge, questioning what he thinks he knows, and changing his approach when he has to.
It's that growth mindset in action.
Always be willing to learn, to try things, to course correct along the way.
Never stop growing. And then, of course, there's the inspiration piece. That unshakable belief that you can do something amazing.
Musk isn't just chasing money or fame. He's driven by a vision of the future he wants to see. A future where we solve the big problem.
And that's got to be powerful to have that kind of purpose.
It is, and it's something we can all tap into, even if our goals are a little less, interplanetary.
It's about finding what truly motivates you, what gets you excited, what gives you that resilience to keep going when things get rough.
Because they will get rough, that's just part of it.
So while most of us won't be building rockets to Mars anytime soon,
Probably not.
we can still take those core principles, right? So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what are your final thoughts on the Elon Musk phenomenon? What does it all mean? Where do we go from here?
It's a complex question with no easy answers.
Right.
But I think one thing is clear.
Right.
Elon Musk is a symbol of our time, a reflection of the immense power and potential of technology,
Yeah.
and a harbinger of the challenges and opportunities we face
Right.
as we navigate this rapidly evolving landscape.
He's a reminder that the future isn't predetermined.
It isn't
It's being shaped right now
right now.
by individuals with bold visions and the will to make them a reality.
Exactly.
Whether we admire him or criticize him,
Yeah,
we can all learn from his relentless pursuit of progress,
absolutely.
his focus on the long game, and his willingness to challenge the status quo.
And as you go about your day, think about the signals that you're focusing on,
Yeah.
the noise that you're filtering out,
Right.
and the bold moves that you're willing to make to achieve your own goals.
It's all about taking action.
It is.
So-
Because as Elon Musk has shown us, the future belongs to those who dare to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Think big, manage the risk, never stop learning, and find that inspiration that keeps us moving forward.
Those are tools anyone can use.
It's been a really interesting journey, this deep dive into Elon Musk.
I've enjoyed it.
Me too, honestly. It's given me a lot to think about.
It has.
What about you? What's one idea or strategy that really stuck with you today?
I think for me, it's that shift in perspective. Not just accepting the limits we see, but really pushing ourselves to imagine what's possible.
Love that.
It's a reminder that we can all do incredible things if we dare to think big and embrace the journey with all its ups and downs.
That's a great one. And for everyone listening, we'd love to hear from you too. What really stood out from this deep dive? What are you going to use in your own life? Hit us up in the comments. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing those boundaries.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.